Hi, this is Gary Marco.
And Jason Mahr.
And we're with myfreedomjourney.com. We're going to continue trying to do our best to give you guys tools so you can live a better life. In one of our last podcasts, we talked about the idea of a paradigm shift. Mm-hmm. I kind of like to start this off with and it's a pretty simple definition, but and it's not Funkin' Wagnalls. I don't know who it is, but they call a paradigm shift a fundamental change in approach or underlying assumptions. So it's pretty simple. So let's think about it this way: if I had everyone in the audience draw a circle on a piece of paper, and then put a dot in the middle of the circle. And we'll call that a problem or something that you view, but we'll call it a problem. If you put it maybe a 2 degree or 3 degree wide pie shape to it, that's about the width of how we normally look at problems. We tend to follow the patterns in how we solve problems. And we always look for solutions in this very narrow range. Mm-hmm. So a paradigm shift, an example of a paradigm shift would be to go to the other side of the circle and look at it from a different viewpoint. But that's a 2D representation of a problem.
Yeah.
And we actually live in a 3D world.
Right.
So I've got this little ball here, little yellow golf ball. And if you did the math, there's 129,600 different ways to look at the same problem. Now that's a paradigm shift. Yeah. It's a fundamental way of looking at something in a different way.
And for those of you who are listening on the podcast and not watching, I can verify that Gary did have a little yellow foam golf ball in his hand. So we're both golfers. We love to golf.
Yeah.
You're welcome to invite us to come to your town and take us out to play golf whenever you want.
That'll work. That'll work. So for anyone to really transform their life and really change, they have to go through this paradigm shift, a change in the way they look at something. Mm-hmm. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's what changed my whole life. I mean, right. there was one way of looking at it. I mean, you kind of grow up thinking that this is the way to address behaviors. This is the way to address issues that you're dealing with.
Right.
But when we went through the whole 360-degree approach.
Yeah.
That was a paradigm shift for me in itself because I didn't realize how I was showing up.
Yeah, good point.
To people. And being able to understand, of course, setting up that judgment-free zone, like mm-hmm. we talked about, asking the right questions, which was, what do you see in me
right.
that I can't see in myself?
Right.
It created that paradigm shift for me because I was able to see that I was showing up as arrogant. I was showing up as insecure in some ways. And it really did depend on the type of person I was talking to.
Sure.
Because if you're talking to an insecure person, you may have you may be confident in some area, but to the insecure person, they think of that as arrogance.
Yeah, cocky.
You know.
Yeah. Sure.
So it really just depends. But having that healthy dynamic where you can see yourself from a different perspective is right. really the key.
It's an awareness piece. So before a paradigm shift happens, you have to have some sort of awareness. Mm-hmm. That awareness kind of shines a little bit of light on it, and then you could say, okay, let me look at this in a different way. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I struggled with all the abuse and stuff as a kid when I got to college was I really started drinking quite a bit. I'd call it binge drinking. I don't think I was an alcoholic because I knew a few alcoholics in college, and I wasn't that. Yeah. But I'll tell you, I did become a heavy beer drinker. And later on in life, as I looked at that, I realized that I was really trying to subdue the rejection I was feeling. And it was a way for me to kind of deaden the pain. So it took a little while for me to understand not to fall back to drinking beer, alcohol, when I felt some sort of rejection, or when I felt loneliness, which really is kind of rejection in the same way.
Yeah.
So I had to sit there and go, okay, am I really being rejected at this moment?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I really lonely? Or am I just kind of spending some time by myself because I'm an introvert?
Right.
So that was the not only the awareness, but the paradigm shift I needed to not use alcohol as a way of deadening the pain. And if I hadn't done that, I probably would have had to go through some sort of rehab to get over that.
So going back to the definition
Right.
that we shared about it being a different way of thinking, my paradigm shift happened when, I thought my major issue that was really dominating my life and was creating all the problems in my life was pornography.
Right.
And you sat there and said that's not your problem.
Right.
Of course, we know if you followed my story, I've got a TED talk out there that I actually got to share
Right.
About the fact that it wasn't my struggle and that rejection was the issue. That's been very beneficial for people to see and understand that. But for me, it was this new way of thinking, because I remember you asking me, and I do this for people all the time as well, take out a journal and write all of the different ways that you feel rejected during the day.
Right.
So it was basically turning your radar on to this new way of thinking. And any time that I would feel, because rejection shows up in so many different forms.
Sure it does.
Right?
Yeah.
We experience rejection when we're scrolling through our social media. Because all we are doing is comparing ourselves to other people. Well, this is what we do. We compare the worst of us to the best of other people.
What we perceive as the best of the other people.
But they put out there as the best.
Right.
And we do that. We condition ourselves to think that way, and it creates internal rejection. Like I'm not good enough. You experience rejection by watching an ad on TV. They're basically selling you that your life sucks.
Right.
Without this product.
Right.
So if you don't buy the product, or you don't buy this car, you don't buy this golf club, or whatever, you're not going to be good. So it shows up in so many different forms. And so when my radar was turned on to thinking about rejection, how many different ways that I experienced it, I couldn't write fast enough.
Oh, yeah.
Could fill up paper after paper of how that person looked at me a certain way.
Yeah. And what's interesting is, as we talk about it, it was when you felt rejected.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? Feelings and emotions are so confusing, but making decisions on feelings is probably the worst thing you can do, yet we all do it.
Mm-hmm.
We all do it. It's part of our thought process. So if you can get to a place in your life where you're not reacting to a feeling, and you're able to control your thought process, that's what they call emotional intelligence, right?
Yeah.
So as you gain your emotional intelligence, your life actually gets better because you don't feel bombarded with everything that comes your way on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Now, we're not going to go into any great depth about the journey towards emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
It's just a way of understanding that you really are in control of your reactions and how you deal with stuff. So if you have a paradigm shift, it's changing the way you react to them.
Yeah.
And that's what makes all the difference in the world.
So that was the first layer of paradigm shift. And then there was the underneath layer of paradigm shift after that, which was, okay, I deal with rejection. And then the next thing was when you told me, oh, by the way, you can only feel as rejected as you allow yourself to feel. And I was like, yeah, that's so true. Because there's so many people that we will meet with or we'll chat with, and they'll make these these people made me feel this certain way. And if you sit in that, it's really what it is the victim seat.
Right, for sure.
This person said this to me and it made me feel angry, which the truth of the matter is nobody has ever made you feel angry. You've chosen to be angry.
Right.
We choose anger. We choose those emotions. We choose rejection. And if we can choose them, we can not choose them.
Right.
So when somebody makes the sarcastic comment that before would make you feel internally rejected, you could go, I don't need to worry about them.
Yeah.
They don't, in the grand scheme of things, they're not my judge and jury.
Sure.
Right. So, and of course, that's another discussion for a different day. But that was a huge paradigm shift for me.
It's funny because we both tried to be funny men at some point in our life. And what's interesting about how people react, you could be just trying to be funny, but if you're trying to be funny with someone that really suffers from rejection, it really lands on them totally different than the way it was intended. Mm-hmm. So then they can play the victim card, and they can really see you in, some sort of cloudy way that really isn't you.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
So it can get kind of complicated, but it's really essentially it's really simple if you drill down into it.
Yep. For sure. And honestly, I think the paradigm shift is different for everybody.
Sure.
Based on their background, their history, where you come from. So if you're listening to this, I don't know what the paradigm shift is for you. We may not be able to pinpoint it exactly, but you know what it is. You'll find out what it is. And when you do, the change of direction is based on, it's your own choice.
Right.
Because you can stay where you're at. And we talked about that in the last podcast, the pain of staying the same. I was in a place of pain, and the pain of living the life the way that I was living wasn't working for me. And you always ask that question, how's that working for you?
Yeah.
And it would never, I hated that question. It was like, I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
We'd get together over the course of our relationship, and I would share something that I was struggling with, and he would just smirk and say, how's that working for you? It's not.
It's
not. It never has.
Stop
I know.
It. Don't ask that question anymore.
So it's it's true though. But when you think about it, it's so true that it hasn't ever worked for me.
Right.
That way. So why don't you try doing something different?
Right. And what really, of course, now I was in this at one point in my life. Now that I'm on the other side, it really hurts my heart when I see people that are stuck in a pattern and they don't think that they can get out of it. And more often than not, the reason why they don't think they can get out of it is because it's everyone else's fault, right? Always someone else's fault. Oh, why is this happening? Well, this person did this, and that person did this, and this person said that, and I came from this sort of background, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, you're giving everyone else the power. If you actually looked at it and said, okay, I can't take responsibility of the stuff that happened to me, but I can take responsibility for holding on to it, and I can choose to look at it in a different way. You've created a paradigm shift for yourself that can help you recover.
Yeah.
It's really that simple. So if you're really struggling with something, more often than not, you just haven't taken ownership, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
You haven't taken ownership of it, and if you don't take ownership of it, you can't do anything with it. There's a guy that I really admire that taught me something on change, and essentially the line was, never underestimate your ability to change yourself, never overestimate your ability to change others. Right? So in some ways, if you take a look at that statement, it's really other people. It's really not their fault, right? And more often than not, was how you reacted to what happened.
Exactly.
Is causing you to be stuck.
Yeah.
Right. So for both of us with rejection, when you're younger and it happens, you're not really choosing rejection, but as you get older, you're choosing to be rejected.
Yeah.
And that's what's keeping you stuck.
And we're going to discuss that in a future podcast.
Right.
It may be the next podcast that we do. I don't know.
Who knows?
But whatever attracted you to myfreedomjourney.com, you may be the person who is like, I've heard about this website, I've heard about this podcast, I'm going to go listen to it because I want to help other people. Well, the truth of the matter is everybody's got something that they need freedom from. Everybody's got, and if you're the person who thinks, and I'm not trying to bash you or anything like that, but if you're one of those people who thinks I don't have anything I need freedom from, well, you do. It's ego. It's arrogance.
Pride.
It's pride. Because we all have areas, we all have things in our lives that we can be better at and that we need freedom from. So we'll discuss that in the next podcast about how everybody's got something.
Right.
It's just, if you go looking for it, you'll find it.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you so much for listening to this podcast and supporting us. Please share myfreedomjourney.com with anybody that you can, and like our videos on Facebook and YouTube. And thank you so much for being here.
Have a great day.